Awakened this morning,
awakened
freshest,
this morning,
newest morning,
freshest
of all eternity.
newest morning
Awakened
of all eternity,
this morning,
awakened
in yet another
this morning,
strange bed,
in yet another
in another
strange bed,
strange motel,
in another strange motel,
strange city.
in another strange city.
I will never understand. Awakened
this morning
to the comfort of myself, but to the discomfort of realizing that I am unresolved, but realizing
unresolved,
that such discomfort is a clear signal
that such discomfort
of how far
is a clear signal
I've advanced.
of how far I've advanced.
I want to explain what I'm doing, and then I want to do it a little bit. And this is a painting that I just finished. And when I do collage work, I work with existing paintings, which I started by cutting them up and very carefully placing them on the canvas and rearranging them so that it would look just the way I wanted it to look. I don't do that anymore, and in the interest of time and in the interest of the effectiveness of what I'm doing, I'll just get a painting. And this was a nice painting too. This was originally composed as a piece of poetry for solo voice, rhythmically. You can see the rhythms here. Then it became a duet for two voices and became a trio, and it found its way into a lot of my paintings. And there we have Sunset and Child. And so we have the language, and we have the visual, we have the poetry, the visual, and if you can get up and close and see this, we also have the music. We have all the elements of music. We have form, we have rhythm, we have dynamics, except specific pitches. That's one element of music that we don't have. Instead of the pitches, we have the language. I'm going to take off of the easel now. I finished this yesterday, actually, and now I've got a blank canvas. This is a brush that cost me 68 cents. So this gives me the 5 lines of music, a music staff. And the first brush I actually had the 5 lines, and it was about half this size, and it cost me $26.50. And then I figured, why don't I buy cheap brushes and just cut them up myself? So that's what I'm doing. So now I'm going to create some lines of music. And this one will go down, probably. Yeah. When I finish this work, if I don't like it, then I'll make a collage out of it. And the way I would make a collage out of it is I go over here where I've got a storage of paintings, pull this out, and I'll tell you, I've got 3,000 paintings, and I'd say 2,000 of them are paintings on paper. And I'm basically painting my poetry and my music. And this one consists of 3 one-word poems that are laced together in a trio. The one word is beautiful, which exists in a book of mine as a poem. One is child and one is innocence. So I'm lacing these two together. One of my early books, New Forms, New Spaces. And there's child. And what I've done is I've taken the word apart and I go into the inner landscape and I play. This was long before I started painting. And I play with the colors of language. Forget about, child is just a label. We've learned what child means. But it's just a label, so I've tried to make it come alive. And as a poem, it's strictly a performance piece. You can see the music is there with the poetry. And as a poem, it becomes I old ulda I, the I-cha, ulda I-cha, the I-cha, I. And then at this point, I'm not even bothering to look anymore at this because this just kind of gets me revved up. And then it becomes an improvisation like a jazz musician. And here's innocence, which is there. And innocence is, there is a Greek word called polyptotone that talks about the words that are alive and imprisoned in words trying to escape. And that's another thing I try to do. I try to let those words out, like innocence becomes innocence, in no sense, in no sense, no, no, in no sense, in no, no. And basically it goes into the realm of sound poetry, where you get away from the word as a label, as a cognitive dictionary label, and it becomes something that's alive with color and everything. And that's probably part of what got me into painting. Here's this painting. If it was properly framed and all, it might be nice, but it's not going to be nice because I'm going to tear it up. That was done quite a while ago, before I realized that the best way to do this is to just simply tear them up. There I was very careful. Everything is square, or most everything. And so there, so much for beautiful child innocence. It's also on a album of mine where I did child, and then I put on earphones, listened to child, and improvised beautiful. Then I put the earphones on again. This was done in the studio. And then beautiful was in one ear, child was in the other, and then I improvised innocence. Improvisation has been a most important part of my life, and it's becoming even more so now working with Chuck Bush, who is a master engineer and a keyboard artist. And I come to him with ideas, and or I get the ideas after I arrive. I look around the room. Got a great voice for jazz and improvisation, so we have a marvelous time. We finished one album, and this is the cover of it. I designed the cover, and then I designed the back of it too. Chuck and I have been working together for probably 5 months. Would you say, Chuck?
Yeah, 5-6 months.
5 to 6 months. We started out in his little recording studio in his van. And for the past few months, we've been spending all of our time here. Basically, I think we've arrived at a place where we both wanted to go. And that's in terms of getting to a point where language becomes and performance becomes more for me an improvisation than anything else. And it seemed like Chuck was of the same mind, right, Chuck?
Definitely.
Using my old poetry and reinventing it. And I'm creating lyrics at random. And Chuck is also improvising with me as I go. We don't prepare in any way for this. That would be self-defeating. So I've got here just fragments from the poem, variations on a theme, or maybe it was 4 themes, and I'm just going to start playing with it and see where it takes me. And I know that Chuck is going to take me there part ways, and I'm going to take him there, and we're going to be having a great deal of fun interacting with one another. And are you about ready to give it a shot? Huh? We can do it. We can do it. You and I. Suddenly, just silent spring. Suddenly spring. Suddenly, just silent spring. Awakened memories. Memories of past loves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to splatter this with different colors of paint, and then I'm going to come back to it and create the score, the musical score. And then I'm going to improvise some language into it. So here we go. First thing I want to do is I want to lay some paper down here on the floor. Here I go. This is about 5 minutes after I laid down the bar lines and the treble clef. This is fun doing this. Let's lay down red first. It's visually nice, but I'm going to do something about that. I'm going to thin it out just a tad. I've had this little mixer here since the day I started painting. This was one of the first things I bought. Well, I've never painted in my life. I don't have those skills. I can't even draw a bad stick figure. I called Lucille Arneson, a real dear friend of mine who was a professional artist, and I said, Lucille, I think I would like to try and paint. I told her what I saw. I think I would like to try and paint some of my music. And she said, and my poetry. And she said, I've waited a long time for this day. And I said, but I have absolutely no idea what to do or how to begin. She said, well, you've got Mendel's, right, on Haight Street. And actually Haight just off of Ashbury. I said, yeah. She said, go to Mendel's, get yourself a selection of felt tip pens, different thicknesses, and then get this book. And she gave me a number. She said, that'll be a sketchbook for you, and start playing. So I went to Mendel's, did the thing, came home, got a page of my first symphony. I call it a symphony because it's in symphonic form with various movements. It was for 80 voices, and it was for spoken voice orchestra. It was finally performed at Chico State a few years later. Anyway, I thumbed through it, and I found a page that looked like fun. It was colorful, things were really moving on the page, and so I began. I think the sheets were maybe 11 by 17 size paper, maybe, yeah, about that. And I just started working with it, and the minute I started doing it, I just got a rush. I just felt really good inside. And there were a dozen pages in that book. I finished them in probably less than 2 hours, taking breaks. And the next day I went to a Frame It Yourself place, and I framed 6 of them. And that evening they were on my wall, and thus began my career as a painter. That was the 20th of March, And I was going to be doing a thing in Minnesota at the Walker Art Museum in Minnesota as a poet. I was invited there as a poet. And I've got something here that's kind of interesting now that I think of it. There's a picture of myself with my arms raised one evening. There's a picture of Burroughs holding a gun. He was also there. It was a month-long event. And a couple of months after I started painting, I received their brochure just to kind of let us know what was going on, one of the participants. And there was a section that said, Poets as Painters. And this was probably about May or June. And so I figured, well, damn it, I'm a painter now. And so I quickly got a letter off to them and told them that I was a painter and included a couple of shots of some of the things I'd done. In 3 months, I had a pretty good stock going already. And they called me back and said, we would like to show your work at the University of Minnesota, St. Paul in the Art Center. So 3 months after I started painting, I was already having my first, or invited to have my first one-person show. Now we'll try blue. Ooh, that's the way I like to see it lay out. This one is nice. This one has a better mix. I mean, what could be more fun than this, you know? And occasionally getting paid for it. And the reason I work with acrylics is, number one, I'm painting in my home, and I don't want to have to deal with the odor of oils and the alcohol and brush cleaners and all the stuff that would really stink up a house, number one. And number two, I work very fast. It took me less than 5 minutes to lay down the music bars, and it probably took me no more than 10 minutes to splatter it. Everything's pretty dry. There are a few here, gobs that are still wet, and we took a break for some iced tea. But for the most part, it's dry, so I can keep on going, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to create a musical score now. I suppose I should, I could put a text in here and then work with a text first, and that might be a good idea, but I'm going to just lay down a little of this anyway for decorations. That's always a fun thing to do. Yeah. But these need to be dealt with here. These notes, I'm just not sure where they're going, what they're saying, but I believe in them. And so I'm facing over here and doing it. I have a friend, Jerry Boxer is his name. I call him Shanghai because he spent a lot of time in Shanghai. He's now living in Thailand with his third Thai wife. I met him in The Hague, in a place called Kiss My Sweet. And he was just hanging out looking at people, and then I came in and he looked at me and I looked at him, and we were sitting together in a couple of minutes, and we've been lovely, lovely friends ever since. Jerry would come in and sit and look at my paintings for a long, long time before he would say anything. And the thing that he constantly harped on with me is he said, Toby, he said, when I was painting, I would paint for 5 minutes and I'd look for 55 minutes. And then I'd paint for 5 and look for 55. He said, you paint for 55 and look for 5. And I said, well, that's not really true, Jerry. I paint for 60. And I'm doing my looking while I'm painting. But, so, for me to step back like this and look at it, that's about as far as I go. And painting for me is an experience, and it's also a passion. I haven't mentioned the word synesthesia. Synesthesia is the connection that exists between the various disciplines. The painting, the visual, the music which is beginning to happen, the language, the poetry which will become a part of it. And often when I'm doing a performance or when I'm at a showing of my paintings, I will ask, is there anyone here who would like to dance? And do an improv with me. And sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't.